Okay. Alrighty. Let's see. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay.
Hey,
Hey,
everybody.
everybody. Hey, I think we're live. Is anybody there? Anybody want to say hi? Okay. If anybody's there, hi. Hi, Paula. Thanks for joining us. So if anybody can see us, and if you can hear us too, just give me some thumbs up just to know that that you can hear us and everything. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I am so happy to welcome my friend Chuck Raffoni here tonight, and I'm so excited because I love watching him teach because he's let me introduce him first. I probably should do that first.
I mean, everyone doesn't know who I am.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, so Chuck's a yoga teacher and a wellness coach and so much more. You may have seen him featured on the Today Show when they were here not too long ago doing a feature in the Merrimack Valley area, lifestyle feature, and he was featured on the Today Show, and it's online too, so you can see it if you missed it. But welcome, Chuck. How are you?
Thank you.
Good. I'm so glad you're here.
I am too.
And one of the reasons why I've been doing this series of talks, I've always loved to talk to people and hear their story anyway, how they get to where they are today. But I'm fascinated by your story as well, because I know a little bit about how you got into what brought you to yoga. And I know that it helped you immensely, but then you went forward to help other people with it. So I want to hear how you got to that point, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. So I started with yoga when I was in my early 20s, just coming to the physical practice because I had my immune system shot out and my doctors were kind of at a dead end. I made it all the way to the CDC and they basically told me, kind of ironically for where we are right now, limit your contact with the outside world. And to me, that was just like unacceptable to be in my 20s and to get that kind of news. So my grandmother was really into holistic medicine and she guided me to certain books, and through trial and error, I found a combination that worked for me to help me heal my immune system. So that included mushrooms, supplements into my diet. But one of the primary things was finding yoga. So I started off with Tai Chi, and it helped me understand the energy in my body and develop that connection, but I was looking for more. And I really lucked out because I met a new teacher at the time, and he was having trouble finding places to offer yoga. And he actually offered it across the parking lot from a Planned Parenthood center. And there was always picketers and protesters outside. So no one would go to his class. Oh. So I would go and I would get these amazing one-on-one foundational sessions with him, which, you know, was not great for him and his business, but for me, it really gave me like a strong, solid foundation in my yoga practice. And so in that time, it really helped me kind of come into my own as a man, get more comfortable with my body. And then I moved into my family business, and the pressures of that and getting into a relationship and, you know, hitting mid-30s, I started gaining weight, getting put on blood pressure medication, the pressures of the job had me on anti-anxiety medication, all of that fun stuff that, you know, comes with adulting. And I ended up, the family business ended up closing, and just a shift in the business model. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I was in my 40s, and I was like, well, when was I really happy? It was during the recession, and it was hard to find a job. And I said, well, you know what? I loved yoga. I was so happy. I felt so healthy back then. Why don't I just be productive and take a yoga teacher training program just to deepen my practice and to get back into it? And because of my business background, I started helping that particular yoga teacher with her studio, and I started teaching there, and then I started getting recruited. And from there, I just was like, I think I can do this for a living. And how rewarding is that to be able to do something that I love, that I'm starting to see help other people. And so that's kind of how I ended up being a yoga teacher.
And I love watching you teach, because you are so passionate about it, and you just love people, and it shows. It really does. Yeah, it's wonderful to see.
I'm realizing that now, missing these live classes, and it's been interesting self-reflection to recognize just what an extrovert is and what that means. So like on any given day, 30, 40 people choose to come to my classes, and I interact with them, and there's a lot of hugging, and there's like, what's going on in your life, and all of that stuff. And so over these last few weeks, I'm recognizing how nourishing that is to me personally. And so it's definitely been interesting going through this experience. But thank you for that. That comes across in class because I love it. I love the community sense of it.
Yeah, it really does. And I love that you're doing all of these different places. You're offering yoga in different places. And then there's also a social aspect that's included with it as well, right? Afterwards,
right.
Everybody gets together, has a beer or wine.
Yeah, I mean that's gotten me into trouble. With I call them the yoga police. Because some people, like, there's definitely people that offer yoga with beer, and no judgment to what they do, but it'll be things like, we're gonna like balance a pint glass on our head, or in between, like when you come into your down dog, you're gonna like gulp a beer. I don't do anything like that at all. There's no drinking encouraged before the practice or during the practice. It's just what you said. It's about a sense of community after the class. And I have a lot of people who are sober that come, and they just love being in that sense of community. There's also pizza there. So I do this with Navigation Brewing Company, and we do it in Lowell every other month. And
nice.
And what was interesting was the last time I started recognizing that I encourage people to come on their own, because I understand that can be challenging for people to have a social life, to connect. And when you go to a yoga studio, I mean, I'm lucky that the studios I work at really do foster a sense of community, but sometimes the reality of the situation is another class is coming right after you. And so for this last one, I actually really made a conscious effort to say, who's here by themselves? Raise your hand, and have people look around and say, remember these people, seek them out, and join them in the brewery, because what I was finding was people were coming by themselves, and then we were getting dumped into the brewery, which is open, and they were like just overwhelmed, and they were leaving. So I created like a buddy system almost.
Nice.
And on the last time, and it worked out so great. It was awesome just to see people like embrace these people and bring them under their wings, and like not make them feel bad about it. And that just felt really good to be able to offer that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because I can imagine there's a lot of people who would love to try a yoga class, but they don't have anybody to go with, and they just don't know what to expect. So what kind of advice can you offer for someone who would love to take part in a live yoga class?
Well, I think in any yoga class, definitely go by yourself. I mean, I think every studio has a mission of like making you feel welcome in a class. And the reality is that yoga is about getting in touch with yourself. And so in a way, some of these community events that I do are maybe counterintuitive to maybe the like true philosophy of yoga, of like being okay with being alone and being with yourself. What I want to do is get you to that space where you're comfortable with yourself, you're comfortable being alone. And then how can we take it to the next step and like have a community of people who are solid with themselves, but want to share that with other people. So for a yoga class, come, you'll be fine. And if you just want to be quiet and you just want to sit in the corner by yourself, you can find that space for sure. My classes in general have a really welcoming atmosphere. And in some of my classes, I actually have welcoming things that I do to bring people into it, like a sense of inclusion. And then for something like the brewery, I think that those steps that I've made like recently of saying, let's look out for these people that are here by themselves. And if you want to participate in that, cool. If not, it's not like, oh, let's put a sticker on your forehead, like you are here alone. Like I'm very sensitive in how it's presented. And actually, I've been talking with the brewery. Maybe I shouldn't say this because we haven't totally worked it out, is to actually have a section for us to meet. And that way you can just go into that section and it's less about like someone being singled out. So that's something that I'm working towards, because it's usually upwards of 40 or 50 people that come to that event. So it's a lot of people to wrangle.
Yeah. And I love how you just make it so inclusive. I think it's wonderful that you do that, because it can be very, I think, intimidating for some people, because that's the social aspect of going to a yoga class. But then there's a physical aspect. Like some people might say, I can't even touch my toes. Why would I want to go to a yoga class? So what do you say for people that might have that thought process?
Well, for the people that say that they can't touch their toes, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, just watch some of my online videos. I can't do a lot of the postures myself, or I don't take them as deep as, other people. I'm 50. So like your practice changes, your body changes, your limitations change. But in terms of I'm not flexible enough for yoga, I use a couple analogies. Number one, it's like saying you're too dirty to take a shower, or, oh man, I'm so hungry, I'm not going to eat. So if you're not flexible, then bring that into your practice, bring that into your life with the physical part of yoga. And I think part of it, yeah, and I think part of it too, and I talk about this a lot, is that people think of yoga exclusively as just the physical practice, when that's really just one small part of the yogic lifestyle. So I've had people that are injured and they're like, I can't do my yoga anymore. It's like, no, you still can, because there's 7 other limbs of yoga. There's 7 other parts of it. And so I think sometimes when we see in the media all these bendy, crazy poses and, shirtless guys on cliffs and handstands, you think that's so not for me. I mean, a stretch like that is yoga, or moving your neck is yoga. It's any conscious movement with your breath, but then it's also how you treat others, how you treat yourself, breathing, meditation. So yoga is so much more than just the exercise class that people often associate it with.
Good point. And welcome to your 50s.
Thank you. It just happened last week.
Isn't it exciting? I love being 50.
Kind of.
Are you enjoying it? I mean, I know it's kind of been solitary, but are you enjoying being 50 so far?
I'm actually joking that it's 49 and holding until I can properly celebrate. But yeah, no, it feels all right. Honestly, we talked a little bit about like how real we should get in this conversation, just because we want to uplift people. But honestly, like turning 50 in the midst of this quarantine, like I'm recognizing how precious time is. Yeah. And I'm just like, I just want to get out there and live my life, so that's been probably like one of the hardest things for me in this, is that I'm just raring to go. I'm raring to enjoy every moment, and I just have to enjoy it in different ways than maybe what I had anticipated.
For now.
For now, yeah.
I'm loving 50 though. Yeah, I'm loving my 50th year, I have to say.
Yeah, all right, good.
In spite of the pandemic. So.
Exactly.
And I do want to kind of address that too, because I think that yoga will become a really a great outlet for a lot of people, especially right now, because this solitary time for a lot of people is change in life patterns, and people grieving either a temporary change of life pattern, or potentially a permanent change of life pattern, being work or family or who knows what else. We're still unpacking this as weeks go on here, but how does grief and the acceptance of what is, how does yoga help people with that? I know it's a big question. I know, where do we start?
It is a big question. And honestly, I think that you played a huge part in me connecting the dots with that in my yoga practice by having a reading with you. Because a couple years ago, at a very, very difficult point in my life, when something seemed so beyond able to even think about like how that could fit into a bigger picture, meeting with you gave me some clarity into the bigger picture, into like the spiritual part of the yoga practice and our soul's journeys. And so I think that once you recognize that there are journeys that we take on a spiritual level, that there's karmic contracts, that things might not necessarily be right in this life, it helps with grieving. So in yoga, we actually, most classes end with a posture called Shavasana, which translates to corpse pose. And I heard a description of it that I use in class a lot that I think is really great, is that it's the death of the practice, that you come in, you pick a style of yoga and a teacher, and you use it as a way to almost like take your car into the shop and you plug in and you get like an assessment. You're doing that in your body, your mind, and your spirit. And then at the end of the practice, you reflect upon your assessment of yourself, and you might grieve some things. You might let some things die on the mat. And that once we recognize that we have a number of deaths throughout our life, that it's not just necessarily like someone's final passing,
Right.
that death can actually sometimes be a great thing, because it's opening up for new beginnings or taking a weight off of your shoulders. And so I think sometimes taking a moment to grieve the death of some part of ourselves can be challenging and difficult. But if we can look at the bigger picture and recognize that endings are beginnings, it helps us get through that grief. And so yoga brings that clarity to me, that time, that assessment of mind, body, and spirit, and then having people like you who plant those seeds in our heads so that we think about it in those moments. And so to me, that's what a good yoga teacher does, is it plants seeds in your head while you're doing this practice, while you're assessing yourself. And maybe some of those seeds grow, or maybe you're just not the type of like soil for that particular seed in that moment. And maybe it's like somebody else in the class. And I think that's how you can get through grief or hard times, through the practice. And sometimes I think people are like, well, how does a stretching class, change your life or help you see things in a different way? And it's once you get deeper and you're able to connect those dots, that's where the magic of it can really happen.
So I mean, I've heard it said that, grief, pain, whatever, all your emotions somehow are embedded in your physical body. So by going through the motions of yoga in a yoga class can actually help to release that.
Absolutely. There's definitely certain parts of parts of the body where we hold it more. Like a lot of people will hold a lot of pain and trauma in their hips, and it is more common than not to have at least one person crying in class at one point that you observe as a teacher. Now, the other students never recognize it. So I always encourage people, like, know that you're in a safe space. Allow yourself to release. That's the catharsis of this practice. And to hold it back is just almost going to like make it worse. So if you feel it come up, like, let it go, let it be, work your way through. And so, yeah, it can definitely, I did a retreat recently, and there was a particular guest on the retreat, and their whole body just physically manifested through the whole practice, just shaking, tremoring, crying, like a huge release constantly through the physical practice.
And how long of a retreat was this? Was it a weekend, 4 days?
It was a week.
A week. Wow.
Yeah.
So they went through this process every day of gradually releasing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
How did this transform them over the week?
They're actually a yoga teacher and a healer themselves, and I think it's an ongoing journey for this particular person. But they felt, because they were able to remove themselves from being the professional and actually being a guest on the retreat, I think, if I understood the communication that we had, that they were starting to feel chronic ailments start to dissipate, things that they've been holding for far too long.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it can really heal on many different levels.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how can someone, so a lot of people have a little bit extra time now for the coming weeks anyways. How can someone sort of start to explore yoga while they're home?
Well, right now there's more opportunities than ever. So, I mean, the people that are watching this are on Facebook. So if they have, I'm guessing if they're connected with you, they're probably starting to see other people that are in the world that we're in, of healers and yoga teachers. And they're probably seeing lots of like free videos and online videos like coming up on their screen. So stop on one of those, watch it for a little bit. Do you like what the teacher's saying? Are you vibing with them a little bit? If you are eyeing a particular studio, take a look at how they're handling the situation. Most of them are offering online teaching in one way or another. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that I responded by creating my own online platform as well. And so it's something I've actually wanted to do for a long time. And just the perfectionist in me was like, well, I'm not going to have a professional studio, and I wanted to be, perfect, that I held myself back with my own kind of insecurities, or even like being 50 or whatever. And but this kind of pushed me into it. And so at yogawithchuck.com, you can sign up for my online platform. And so basically what it is, it's kind of like, it's set up similar to, it's on Patreon. It's similar like a Facebook page, but I'm posting daily videos, audio guided meditations, having an exchange and mentorship. So if you have questions about some of the practice, I can answer the questions or offer suggestions, and maybe even if necessary, like shoot a video for you so that you can see it. And honestly, like in this time where I'm unable to work and teach live classes, it's been a lifesaver to have a little bit of like income come in. So I'm just charging $2 a week. It's $8 for the month, and
Wow,
check it
that's
out.
a steal. $2 a week, you get to try yoga with Chuck. Oh my gosh. So yogawithchuck.com.
Yeah.
And $2 a week, and they can try yoga with you. That's wonderful. Yeah. What a great opportunity for people. I mean, really.
Thank you. Yeah. And I hope to continue with that after this, and maybe do like a live class per week on it, and then add other videos. And then of course, get back to teaching live, because that's where I love the most, like the connection. But it's been great because I've been able to have, say, people I grew up with in high school that live far away, and like now they're able to see what I do, or other people who maybe saw the Today Show get a chance to practice with me. So it's been kind of cool. It's been a blessing in this situation, and I think that that's something that we have this luxury, right? We just found out we've got another month of this, and I see an analogy about like the depression, and how like the people who went through the depression really took some life-changing habits with them, like being very mindful of the food that they eat and not wasting. And there's definitely characteristics of the depression era people that I think can be really positive. Mm-hmm. So what characteristics do we want our society to take away from this? It could be things like utilizing technology to make sure that we reach out with other people. I saw a great thing online today, like, are you feeling lonely in your home? Think about the elderly and what they might feel like when they're in a nursing home or an assisted living. Yes. And, so
it gave us a chance to feel what that feels like.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So what characteristics do we want this, COVID-19 generation to take forward? And I think that we have an awesome opportunity in front of us to develop some really great habits.
Yep, absolutely. And to appreciate the fact that we can still, when we can leave our homes, to actually leave our homes and to connect with others, and and the families that are getting to be able to have dinner together because they're not over scheduled, and it's a great gift for a lot of people, I think, to kind of put things in priority. Yeah. So
you see it that way, if you choose to see it that way.
Yeah. And of course, this, we wouldn't choose it to happen this way in order to gain those lessons, but, with everything, there's always a positive and negative. So if we can just take those lessons away from it, it won't be for nothing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we started a conversation before we came on the air, and they said, wait, hold that thought. We want to go on the air and talk about this. And one of the things, I know both you and I, we try to keep things positive. We tend to try to bring a lot of positivity to our work and everything. And but we got to get real too, and I know myself, I've had moments over the past few weeks. I mean, I've got a roof over my head. Everybody's healthy. We've got food in the kitchen. Everything's good. Right. But there's just those moments where I just, get really sad, and I think you also said something that's similar, right?
Yeah. Well, for me, did I talk about it when I talked about 50? Yeah, I talked about it.
A little bit. Yeah.
Just like I'm raring to go, like, live life, and then like the options are less. And when you said you wrap your head around like, okay, here's a month here. And again, it's how you choose to receive. So I've seen something online that's like, I'm stuck at home versus I'm safe at home.
Exactly.
That's a really powerful like shift in how you view something. Or for me, like going back to what I was saying about like, how do we want to be viewed as this COVID-19 generation, essentially, is think now, like, what do you want that story to look like at the end of this month, or however long it is, when you go back and you tell this story, what do you want to say about yourself? Like, that was the time that I learned a language that I've wanted to learn, or when I learned how to, cook a different, cuisine, or I started online videos, or whatever it is. Like, what do you want this time to, how do you want to tell this story later on down the road, and make that choice now. And it doesn't have to be a huge lofty goal because we only have a month, but start somewhere, start somewhere.
Right. And there's some people who just so perpetually busy all the time that they're not used to not being busy, that this could be a chance for them to feel what it's like just to be and
True.
not have to do anything. And that can be a really foreign thing for some people.
Right.
Just
Exactly.
be. And that can bring up a lot of things. And I think that's where yoga can come in too, because they can help process what might be coming up that they don't allow themselves the time to process. So,
yeah. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, how this manifests, particularly in people in family units. Is this going to be a time for getting to know each other on a deeper level? Maybe healing some wounds that have just been kind of like swept under the rug. And on the flip side, it might open up some really harsh, changes that people might go through. So it's a really profound time, I think, for everybody. And I think that yoga, the physical practice of stopping and breathing and being conscious of how you're receiving things in your physical body, but also your mind and your spirit. And when I talk about spirit, like for me, I'm talking about like those motivating forces that get you through every day. Not that I pigeonhole spirit just to that, but in terms of yoga practice, that's what I talk about. Like, like what motivates you every day. I think that there's profound opportunities for us here.
Absolutely. Yep. We're just being conscious of allowing ourselves to feel what we need to feel. And there's really no right or wrong way to feel. And then always eventually coming back to gratitude. What we do have. And,
exactly.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's okay to feel sad. It really is.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it's part of the human emotion, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
I mean, how could we ever look back on this and be like, oh, I wasn't scared, I wasn't sad, I didn't feel like some sense of loss, that it's the human experience.
Exactly. And if we don't process it, then we don't gain anything from it. So it's good to do that.
And also why is this happening to us individually, but also why is this happening to us culturally? Like, how does this fit into the bigger spiritual picture? That's something that's interesting to me. And I hope, and I'm hopeful that this is a shift for a different way of living and treating each other and being a little bit more mindful of ourselves, each other, and maybe even the earth too.
Yeah, absolutely. The earth. I mean, we're seeing all those pictures of the reduced pollution and there's no way we can actually picture that other than having this happen, to actually see that in such a short period of time, how much we can recover pollution with the pollution. And I mean, if there's going to be a blessing, I mean, that's one thing I can say for sure, that's a blessing to be able to actually see that happen so quickly, because we're all able to just pause and put everything on pause. When normally we couldn't do that, to actually witness that it can be done. Amazing.
Exactly. And how many people are reconnecting to nature? I know for myself, I see so many people out walking now that never walked before. So there's new habits, new changes that I'm physically seeing, because I live in a somewhat scenic area, and I would maybe see a handful of people walking every day. And now, I mean, obviously everyone's like keeping their personal distance, but there's people out there enjoying nature, getting outside in a way that I haven't seen in the 2 decades that I've lived in this location. So that's beautiful to see. And even for myself, like, I'm hearing nature more, and I'm pretty attuned to that. I think it's coming alive. I don't think we need to go to Venice to see something as dramatic as like the dolphins like returning to the canals. It's right here where we're living, if we just open our eyes and are present to it.
Absolutely. That's something I've noticed too, is just hearing the birds more.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not just me.
Yeah, it's not just you.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely hearing the birds more and seeing more wildlife around, and it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
it really
we can't
is.
Go back now.
No, we're in this, and it's just like, how are we going to choose to receive it and take advantage of this time? And I think that we're being presented with a gift and an opportunity.
I think so too. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an honor for you to come on and chat with me. Thank you for coming on here. It's been lovely.
My pleasure.
So if anybody would like to connect with Chuck, you can go to yogawithchuck.com. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yoga with Chuck, Facebook, Instagram, and .com.
And $2 a week, you can try yoga with Chuck. What a steal!
I mean, it's still, you know, in my house, and you know, I'm not a professional videographer, but it's coming from the heart, and you know,
all
and
that
I
matters.
would connect with you that way. Yeah.
It's all that matters, coming from the heart. So
yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thanks. Keep doing the good work.
I know, and I want to see you like outside of the phones when this is all done. So
yes, you too. I got to come to one of your classes in Lowell. I have to.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, sounds
all right,
good.
thank you so much,
Thank
Laura.
you. Take care, everybody.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you, everybody.